Good evening, Tigercast fans. Back on a Monday night, albeit with 2 points, which is better than none that we've acquired the previous couple of weeks. So I think we'll take what we can get at this time of the year just to try and keep ourselves somewhat in the hunt. But it was a little bit of painful viewing against Freo. But we'll get stuck into that part a little bit later because we've got a very special guest tonight. But first, Karl, welcome back to you, mate. How have you been?
Yeah, great to be back. A little disappointed with how we've been going in the last little month. We should be well and truly in the lead up to playing finals, given the results we've been having. If we had been a kick further in front, we would have won a few more games. Would have been a couple more wins on the board, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. So not as happy as probably what I could be, as a lot of other people are as well. But no, look, there's a lot to cover. So looking forward to having a chat about Richmond again.
Definitely. No, we'll definitely touch on all that later on. But we've got a very special guest in the house tonight. He played 125 games, kicked 124 goals for the Tigers. Ben Holland, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Karl. Thanks for having me on tonight. Looking forward to it. And I echo Karl's words as well. It's a bit sad at the moment, the old Tigers. They've should be a couple of rungs higher on the ladder and just not closing the games out.
Definitely should be. And a huge shout out to Nick as well for getting in touch with you and helping organise this. I believe he was a player sponsor of yours back in your playing days.
Yes. They looked after me, the Rarakis boys, and I think they're still quite close with Mark Dragosevic. Is it? He was on a few weeks ago as well. Yeah. So he was hounding me to get on this show, so it's very important that I get on there. So I'm good to be here.
Very good. And, well, I mean, someone's actually asked foot doctor is not the technical term, but it's still in podiatry, so give your business a plug. So if anyone does need to see you.
Yes, I am. The Victorian Podiatry Group, which has got a lot of there's about 12 sites all around Melbourne, and we employ 6 podiatrists working there. So I work at a couple of the sites. So any big footy listeners out there with sore heels or Achilles problems or injuries, or even your regulation toenails, come in and see us. And I did this on Talking Tigers, a 20% discount for anyone that mentions the Big Footy the podcast. So
there you
extend
go.
that to all the Tigers supporters out there. When they book you, tell the receptionist.
Might pass that on to my father-in-law. He needs to get his toe looked at. He's a Hawk supporter, but that's all right. We'll get him on board.
It's all right. We can take that off for him.
We'll take it off. All right. We're going to get stuck into some quick questions because Ben's with us till 9 o'clock, which is really generous of his time. So I found a couple of interesting things when looking up just a bit about you. But the drafted by Fitzroy in 1994 at pick 19, but elected to remain in South Australia the following season before coming across to the Tigers. That was obviously a long time ago now, but how did that all come about? Did Fitzroy, were they in contact with you for a while, or was there a chance for another club? And I suppose, what was the reason behind staying home in SA?
Yeah, they were. The Fitzroy were after me for a while, and as you said, got drafted number 19. My coach at the time was Daryl Hart, who was a Crows player and then coached North Adelaide. And I just finished school, and I came across to Fitzroy a week before I did a week of the preseason camp with them, believe it or not, and I came off and their headquarters had changed to the top of a pub in Fitzroy. They were training out of Coburg Oval, but they were having to wait to Coburg to finish training. They didn't have a major sponsor at the time, and then they got Nauru on board. The players were sort of leaving left, right, and centre, and it was a really challenging time for them. And Daryl Hart was in my ear saying, "Look, it's an unstable club. It's not the best place to go to." Mum and Dad were a little bit hesitant as well, and understandably so. It's sort of a 17, 18-year-old boy. They're throwing him over to a interstate to be looked after by someone else. And there was a lot of rumours, that Fitzroy were going to merge with, I think initially it was North Melbourne, wasn't it, at the time? They were sort of talking about that. And so things weren't going great for the club, and Daryl Hart said, "Look, you're still pretty raw and young. Why don't you stay and play in the SNFL for another year? Then you'll be a lot better developed to play against men." He had his own selfish interests. He wanted me to play at North Adelaide for a year in the seniors with him, which I did. And then I sort of said, "I'll come over." And Fitzroy had a pretty bad 1995, 95. And then end of 95, Mick Noonan took over Fitzroy, and he was an ex-North Adelaide coach as well, and he came and sat down and said, look, I can't afford to have you on the list. We've only got 44 spots, whatever it was then. And if one player's not playing, it's, we need to get that spot filled because we're not good enough to not have the full access to the list. So he said, look, if you're not coming over, we'll trade you, get rid of you. And I said, well, look, I had an okay year at North Adelaide, but not excellent. I said, all right, if it's still Fitzroy, I probably need another year to develop because I'm still pretty raw. So he said, all right, we'll trade you with Richmond and Brian Waldron, who's the famous for the Melbourne Storm stuff, but he was the footy manager then. And he sort of did the deal and then came across and said, look, Richmond's going places. We're a good club. Come across. And I feel a bit bad about this, but I said, yep, no worries. I'll pack my bags. I'll come across. So it was, and the rest is history. But it was more so that Fitzroy were really unstable. That things weren't looking good. As it worked out, 96 was their last year, so that was my first year in the AFL, and they were getting thumped every week. But sliding doors, I could have gone to Brisbane and played in a couple of flags. Who knows? It's just the aim. But yeah, it would have been a very, very hard first year of footy, and so I'm happy with my decision to play and came to the mighty Tigers and never looked back.
So it didn't play on your mind at all. Obviously, the excitement around getting drafted and then not getting to get stuck into it straight away. You obviously had good support around you to, I suppose, understand the reasons why. But I can just imagine that would be really tough as a young kid to handle.
Yeah, look. No, you're spot on. I look back at it now and think, what was I thinking? Now you jump at the chance. You go, yeah, of course. When can I get in the system? I think the SNFL was pretty strong then, and North Adelaide were going okay. So we were playing finals. We had a good group of senior core players, and so they got in my ear a little bit. So I said, no, this is the best place to develop. You're going to learn more here than you are getting beaten by 20 goals every week at Fitzroy. And you still got that whole career to get you going. So I suppose that settled my nerves about not going. My brother Nick was over here. He was playing at Hawthorn at the time, and he was playing twos. He didn't play much senior footy till his third year of AFL of being in the system. So I was probably watching that and going, well, I'm probably just going to be playing twos anyway, so I may as well be here playing seniors. It's a similar sort of level. But yeah, obviously, I think things have changed. These days, you jump at the chance, you come across straight away. But back then, it was still a little bit raw. We weren't full time. We were 8 till 9 or 10 in the morning. When I first came to Richmond, 8 till 10 in the morning, you'd do your training sessions, go to uni in the middle of the day, and then 4 till 7 at night, come back and do your skills or weights or something like that. And nowadays it's full time, 9 to 5 every day. So that's probably the mindset I was in.
And what was it like walking into a big club such as Richmond at such a young age?
Yeah, it was great, actually. We had our past players catch up last Friday night at the game, and Stuart Wigney was there. So he picked me up from the airport, me and big Brad Smith. I don't know if you remember Brad Big Pipe Smith. He was a big 6'10" ruckman. And we'd both, I've been to Melbourne on holidays, but both pretty raw. And I remember driving in and Wiggers sort of drove us down Bridge Road, and we went to this arts sandwich bar or whatever. And the guy who was there was a mad Richmond supporter and gave us a free sandwich. Said, boys, play well for us. Look up, I'm a big Richmond fan. Make sure you're always, wearing the Tigers colours. And I was just blown away. This guy was giving us a free sandwich. Never met me before in my life, giving us a free sandwich. And, Wiggers was getting a free coffee from him and stuff. And it was just that, and that was Richmond, like real the heart of Richmond, and everywhere around there was Richmond colours around the place. They'd had a pretty good 95. Don't know, you guys probably remember what position they came, but they were up there. I think they Richo had a really good year, and the team was going places. And then actually getting into the club itself, it was like a lot different these days, but it was a step up from where I was at North Adelaide, and the change rooms, you just had that good history about them, even though it was under the old Jack Dyer stand and pretty pokey. You could sort of smell the liniment that Francis Burke had put on, and you see all the old photos around the place. It was a really good feeling, and you sort of thought, right, I'm in one of the big clubs here. This is showtime.
And then you go on to make your debut. I think it was round 3 in 96.
Yep.
How was the feeling there when you finally get your chance at AFL, having, the 1 year in the Sandful, and then finally getting your chance, but with Richmond as opposed to playing with Fitzroy?
That's right. Yeah, that was good. So Robert Walls was my first coach, and he looked after me. He was a really good teacher. I reckon he would have. We probably should have stuck with him for a little bit longer, but who knows? It's Richmond, pretty ruthless. But he was a good coach of men, and he had that teacher ability to try and get the crew going the way he wanted. And we went up to Brisbane. It was round 3 in Brisbane. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. And I played on Richard Champion, who was a South Australian himself, and I'd grown up sort of watching him. And I remember one of my first possessions. It was sort of 1-on-1, and I edged him out, and he sort of fell over onto the ground. I took the mark. I thought, shit, I've knocked him over here. This is amazing. I've been able to push Richard Champion over, and I suppose that sort of gives you a bit of confidence. And that happened a few more times, and you think, I can match it with these guys. This is going to be good. And we had a win up there that night, and that was a hard feat at that time. The travel, back in the day, there was a big hoodoo around traveling and really hard to play and win interstate. So that was a good experience. And I remember, the older senior players, Benny Gale and Butch Gale and Paul Broderick, and that were really, really supportive and a great, I suppose, reference for a young, raw, nervous young fella. They just sort of carried me through, looked after me. Brodders was constantly coming up on the field and checking I was okay, and just that care and compassion from them was great. So, really, really fond memories of that first game, and I enjoyed it, and I felt like I belonged at the level.
So you mentioned Robert Walls there, and we know that Wallsy didn't really last that long at Richmond. As a player, like your first or second year player, when Wallsy goes, how are you feeling in that sort of environment? You've just got to a club, and then you lose a senior coach, and you're about to meet a new senior coach. We see that happen these days, and it happens a lot more frequently than probably what it did back then. How are you feeling back then?
Yeah, it was a bit harsh, because you're right. He's the one that showed some confidence and got you across from Adelaide and said, yep, this guy's in my plans, and he's given me my first game. And I think I played 11 games that year, and I was playing all right the next year as well. And that's what you get thrown back into the unknown. You're like, oh, geez, here we go. What's the next coach going to be? How's he going to be? Is he going to support me or not? Because you need the coach in your corner. Otherwise, it's a really hard road and a hard slog. And some players that don't have the coach, they might have been playing senior footy, and then Geesh, who came along next, might not have liked them, and bang, they're out the door. So there is that nervous, I suppose, apprehension about the unknown, but probably a little bit settled that Geeshin had been there coaching the twos that year. So we sort of knew him, and he took on quite a bit of Wolsey's game plans and styles and things like that. But it was nervous, and I was sad for Wolsey, because, as I said, I liked him and he looked after me, and I thought he was a good coach. But you learn pretty quickly. You got a new boss, you got to toe the line and get into it.
And you nailed your first goal. I think it was round 11 versus St Kilda. What was that moment like, kicking your first AFL goal?
Very, very unimpressive, Chris. Very unimpressive.
Doesn't say that in the record books.
Yeah, exactly. But so what happened was that I was playing in the forward line, and Richo got the ball out in the wing and running down the wing and booted the ball in, got knocked down, got decked after kicking the ball, and it was a free kick down the field. So I was the one that marked it. And so I was at the top of the goal square, but it was a free kick anyway. So the defender was, the whistle had blown, and the defender had stopped competing at all. And I just went back and kicked the ball through, and I thought, I'll always remember you, Richo, because you got the free down the field, and I was the recipient of it. So very unimpressive, but still, it was enjoyable to kick the first goal. I wish it was a snap from 50 or a big torp or something like that, but free kick down the field.
And you kicked obviously a few goals throughout your career, but then you obviously swung back as well. Did you prefer playing forward or defence, and where did you feel, I suppose, most comfortable?
Yeah, I get this question a bit. I reckon as a forward, you sleep well up before the game, and you don't sleep well after the game because you think, oh, how did I miss that? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Whereas the backs, you don't sleep well the night before a game because you're worried about the forward. The night of the game or the night after the game, you sleep pretty well because you've either done your job or it's all over. You can't do any more. But I enjoyed I probably enjoyed the back line a bit better. They're a bit more of a team. They look out for each other. They cover each other's asses, if you get caught out. Whereas the forwards, they're more the artistic. They're the performers. They're the showmen that run their own race a little bit and they do their own thing. And it's all me as we think about the big forwards over the generations. And so I reckon the back line were a bit more of a unit. We got on pretty well. We had a really good backline unit there in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s. Mark Chaffee and Leon Cameron, Chubba Kellaway, and Greg Tivendale, and those sorts of guys, Darren Gasper. And we all played a lot of footy together, and we're good mates. And you sort of knew how they were going to do and how they're going to play and how to rely on them as well. And you knew they'd cover you if you ran off, and you'd do the same for them the other way. So I probably enjoyed that. But in saying that, I did the same at Melbourne when I went there. I played up forward for the first couple of years and then finished off down back. So luckily I was able to play both ends of the game. Otherwise I might not have played as many games or kicked as many goals.
Is it easy to switch your mindset between that? You look at someone like Noah Bolter today, for us, for example, is playing both ends of the ground at such a young age. Is it difficult to be able to change your mindset at an elite level?
I reckon it depends, because I played mainly forward growing up. So I think if you played forward before you go back, I think it's easier because you've had backmen on you and they're doing things and you're learning how they play on you and you're trying to work out, okay, this guy's I can run him around here to learn the tricks, I suppose, of how to lose your backman. So then when you go back, you know the forwards are going to do a few little tricks and turns and things like that. So to answer your question, I reckon it'd be fine for Noah because he's done it a few times now. But the first time you learn a few lessons. I remember David Neitz got me once out at Waverley, where he just, I was one of the first times I was playing down back, and he sort of did 2 or 3 leads, and then he just threw his arms up and just gave the player a serve, and so I thought, it's all over, and so started walking back to the goal square, and then did another, the 4th lead, and got the mark on his own, and so little tricks like that you learn over the journey, and you think, oh God, how did I fall for that one? And I think it might have been Wolsey, or no, it might have been Geishan, or someone said you'll never fall for that trick again, and right, So, but I mean, really, really valuable players in terms of Noah Bolter and those guys that can go both ends of the field, because it gives Dimmer an option, and rather than having to put him on the pine, you go, right, I go down back for a bit and help us out, or vice versa, go up forward and kick us a goal and create some havoc.
I'm going to ask you about Danny Frawley. Now, he famously took us to the finals in 2001. You were part of that side. What kind of an impact did Spud have on you as far as a coach? And is there any Spud story that sticks out to you in your memory that you may not have shared that you'd be able to share with us?
Look, Spud coming to the club was great. He's, as everyone's seen, he's got a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and was a likable fella. And so he was able to get everyone to buy into playing together and playing the system really well. And I think that enthusiasm gravitated, went through the whole team really quickly. And I reckon we had the group there that was at the right age, all playing, as I said before, playing good footy together and young, and had been around enough to know, okay, this isn't just about playing footy. We've actually now got to win games and push it pretty hard. We had that good mix of the older players, Brodders, Benny Gale, Leon Cameron came across from the Bulldogs, and Wayne Campbell, Richo, those sorts of guys that were all quite mature by then. So we were able to, I think we're at the right stage, and Spud sort of gave us a little bit of confidence and a little bit of enthusiasm, because guys, go for it. This is AFL footy at the time. So he had the players playing at their peak 2001, and we had a really good back end of the year where we won lots of games, and we won a few on the road, which gave us a lot of confidence as well. And Spud had a good game plan. It was probably the only game plan he had, which has hurt us the next year because everyone studied us over that 2001 summer, and then we didn't have a B or C or D plan. But he was sticking to that, and we played it well. And it was just unfortunate we came up against the juggernaut of the Brisbane Lions at the time, and that was the first of their 3 flags. But it was bad luck because a few things gone our way in terms of personnel being on the park, and that we might have, or playing in Victoria even might have been a bit better rather than having to play up in Brisbane 2001. But Spud was good at galvanising the group together, getting them together, and keeping us all there. And then Spud stories. I told this one before, but he was a very passionate man, and on the exhibition match we played over in Ireland, in UK in 2003, maybe 2002, 2003, and he told us all, enjoy yourself, blah blah blah, and then 2 nights before the game, he pulled us all in and said, "You guys have been like you're on a footy trip." And this is in October, so everyone's releasing and things like that. "You guys, you've been like you're on a footy trip. You're drinking every night. We've got a game in 2 days' time. We've got to start to settle down and pull our heads in. No more drinking until after the game on Saturday." Anyway, this must have been lunchtime, and then everyone went out, and it was the biggest night of the trip. Everyone was drunk and blowing bubbles, and the next day, Spud came in fuming, like steam coming out of his ears that no one had listened to him at all. And anyway, someone, probably Richo, someone got up and said, take it easy, Spud. But he was, throwing, I think it was a croissant across the room and things like that, saying, "You boys got to listen to us." We ended up winning the game. Essendon, who were playing, didn't care less. They were out on the Friday night. The boys actually behaved themselves on that Friday night. But, the Spud just steam out of his ears, and it was funny because he was the one leading the charge early in the week, and then he's totally flipped around, and he knew he wanted to have fun, but he knew we had to pull our heads in a little bit as well. So, and that's what he's like. He was up and down and up and down. You didn't know what Spud you were quite going to get, but most of the time was pretty happy.
And what was that semi-final against Carlton? Massive occasion. What was the lead up to that game like? And just the atmosphere was 85,000 people, I suppose, at the ground. It must have been just deafening. Yeah,
it was huge. And that I played in a Collingwood match. It was about 89,000 on a Friday night, and so that was my biggest crowd I played in front of. But the Carlton one, because of the finals atmosphere, I remember there was a big crowd at training during the week. We finished off the year really well, beat Essendon in round 22, whatever it was, and then they came out and they wiped us in the first week of the finals because Sheedy sort of just wound up the Bombers and said, "You guys are the real parties next week in terms of the finals," and took a few players off late, and they sort of got under our guard a bit. I think the Bombers that year. And then so we had to bounce back against Carlton, and it was a Saturday afternoon at the G during the day. So it was all your traditional rivals. And the build-up was immense because there's a bit of pressure on us. We'd had a good year, and we didn't want to go out in straight sets and lose. And it was a pretty close game, I reckon, until Kuda sort of went down, which helped us late in the game. He went down. But we got that little bit of a break on them, I suppose, Carlton, and then we were able to finish it out. And I remember the elation after the game. Everyone just thinking, we're on the way to a prelim final. It's the closest a lot of us had sort of got to ever closest I got to getting into a grand final at all. And we sort of started to realise and had a little bit of belief that we're in this, and this could be our year. Obviously, history shows it wasn't, but those memories and that final series sticks into my best period of footy and my most enjoyable period of footy too, because it was what you play footy for with your mates, big crowds at the MCG, and winning games, and having a chance of the ultimate prize to win a flag.
Yeah, and we hear a lot about what Tigerland was like facilities wise, compared to what Punt Road looks like now, and obviously the redevelopment, which is about to happen. But was the facilities really as bad as what they've been spoken about to train in as a senior footballer? When you maybe had conversations with other players from other clubs, they'll be saying, "Oh, how great their new change rooms are," or whatever, and then you just at the back of the Jack Dyer stand getting a rub down or something post match. How was that for you?
Yeah, pretty terrible. It was. I remember coming in, and this goes back to the earlier question, Chris, about what was it like when I first came in, and there was this big green spa bath in the change room, the players' change room. So I thought, oh, this is great. Look how good this spa bath is. I reckon by about round 7, it had been shut down because someone got salmonella or something, E. coli out of it as well, and a player missed a couple of weeks, and it literally it was like, don't go in there. There was almost like the police tape across there, and they took the shower heads off, so players. And you looked at it was all festy, and I think Brian Lees used to get in there still, but that was lazy. And that was one of many things. Like just all the dumbbells, you wouldn't have a matching set. There would be a 20 and a 17.5, or there'd be so you couldn't do uniform bicep curls. But it was, and I suppose we did the most what we could, but we didn't know any better. We were playing and enjoying the times and running around hard. But then when you spoke to especially the interstate teams, the Crows and the Eagles, and they were having sleep like double beds in there that they could sleep over when they got injured, and the trainer would stay with them, and he'd ice them, wake them up every hour and ice them up, and had all these special bikes and Alter Gs, and you're like, gosh, we didn't know have half of that stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's those sorts of things that like I said, we didn't know any different, but talking to the other clubs, you're like, yeah, right, that's
bit of an eye opener.
What's that?
A bit of an eye opener talking to the other clubs.
Definitely. But I think, and that's where Richmond's come on in leaps and bounds in recent years, is they've got the money to do it, number one, and they've gone, right, we've got to compete, and the clubs have to compete. You've got to get up to that level because other guys are recovering better, they're training better, they've got better facilities. Guts and determination get you so far, but you've also got to have that elite training.
Exactly right. Last couple, you were the homecoming hero. I think in June for the West Coast game. What was that like, getting back out into the G in front of the Tiger Army, kicking a goal?
Yeah, it was great. It was beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I've got little kids, 6, 4, and 2, and they came out in the ground with me. I didn't have kids when I was playing footy, so I was really keen to get them along and have a day game. And Benny Gale said, "Yeah, look, we can get you this game." He asked me for a couple of years. I said, "Oh, can we do it as a day game?" And it was beautiful to see all the old Tiger Army there and the Tiger crowd and people yelling out to me. I left Tigers. I wasn't, Spud Frawley kicked me out the door, and it was hard to take because I enjoyed my time there and I enjoyed the players. So it was nice to be, I suppose, celebrated and brought back in amongst it. I've been back before, but be brought back amongst it into the crowd and embraced, and plenty of familiar faces there waving out in the crowd. And so it was a great afternoon, and really special by the club, and a great initiative that they're doing with that. I think it's really important to bring your past players and keep that that nice culture around the place, that they feel that they're welcome and feel like they can come back to the club.
Yeah. And I'm sure the kids would have loved it as well. It would have been a thrill for them, no doubt, being out there with you.
It was pretty funny, actually. William, my 6-year-old, said, Dad, why are they, because people are like, Dutchie, Ben, he goes, why are they yelling out your name? What are they doing? Said, these are Tiger supporters. And he goes, yeah, but what do they want from you? And I said, no, just saying hello. And then, of course, we're telling him, he starts drawing on the walls around the place and things, and drawing on his clothes. And then I'm doing an autograph. He goes, what are you doing? Why are you scribbling on that guy's top? And I said, that's my autograph. He goes, no, it's not. He goes, it's not your name. I'm like, yeah, that's an autograph. And so it's really cute because he hasn't seen a lot of that stuff at all, and he's just got into footy with his mates at school this year, and a bit confused by all the goings on, but it just took him to the next level in terms of loving his footy and loving the Tigers. He's right on board now, which is good.
did he go to school the next day and start signing all his mates' T-shirts? I'm just doing what Dad did.
We got a note from the teacher. Your son is in trouble. He's scribbling on everyone's tops. No, it was really cute. And my little daughter Gracie as well. She was really enjoying looking at the big screen and seeing Dad on the big screen. And
so
just being in the middle of the Coliseum and seeing all the Tiger supporters going crazy there was beautiful.
That's good. I'm glad you're able to sort of wait till the kids are able to come along with you. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And last one, just your thoughts on the current day Tigers with where they're at and where you think they're going to end up after this year. How are we going to finish off these last few rounds?
Oh, geez, I hope they can scrounge together a few wins and just sneak into the 8. I think they've still got the cattle. They've just got to get them all out in the park. You know, the problem is we've had some really good players like Tom Lynch, Dusty Martin, Prestier out for weeks on end. Nankervis, Soldo, I think he's a really good player that's been in and out of the team because of injuries, and they just haven't had that core group of players which they've had the last all the premiership years that have played together all through the season. So I think if they can sneak in there and they get those key personnel back, then we'll see a better on-field performance. But they've made it hard the last couple of weeks, haven't they, by just dropping a few games. So hopefully they can get there. They've got some good young talent coming up. I like Ralph Smith. I think he's going to be a good player, and Gibcus and Cumberland as well. He looks like a goer. So
it looks good.
Yeah, I think they've found a few there, but they and my little boy loves Shea Bolton. He's the magic man, isn't he? He's really come on in leaps and bounds. So if they can get there, they've got the X factor. It's just getting there. It's going to be the hard part now.
Yeah, exactly. Just got to win the next couple of games and try and sneak into the 8. So we'll see how we go.
That's right.
All right, Ben, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Mindful of the time you got to duck off, but really, really appreciate you coming on. It's been fantastic to hear from you and your time at the Tigers, and I think all the listeners would have loved hearing from you. So more than welcome back anytime. Much appreciate all your thoughts and your stories. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on, and go the Tigers. We'll be watching them the last few rounds and urging them on to get in there.
Absolutely. Thanks again, mate. Thank you again to Nick for organising this. Much appreciated, mate. Absolute legend, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Karl. See ya.
Cheers, mate.
What a treat that was for the listeners. Absolute gentleman and a top bloke, Ben. And, you just big number 16 running around, clunking grabs, Karl. We would have obviously both watched him during our time. So it's nice to get him on to hear about his time at the Tigers.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's and I think it was really great to see him be the homecoming hero too. And, just have all of his all the Tigers faithful get around him again, and look, he's a Tiger. We don't worry about his time when he went elsewhere. It doesn't matter. These people, they have large impacts at one club, and he had an impact at Richmond. That's all that matters. So no, it was great to have a great chat to him, and good to hear how his time was at Tigerland. That's for sure.
Exactly right. All right, we'll get into some of the dirty work. We'll try and knock off a review and a preview in half an hour. We'll see how we go. But the draw, Karl, excruciating. A lot of mixed emotions after the game. We had our chances. Cumberland, I think, is a pass mark. I thought he played a fantastic game, and I'll be very disappointed to see anyone giving him any criticism. Bolter probably should have kicked the ball. On the other hand, he should have had a bit more awareness. But, it is what it is. We can't change what happened. Plenty of other moments within that game where we should have won. So it was the final score, 7-10 apiece, 52 each. Split the 2 points. What did you make the game?
Well, I just want to point this out first of all. A lot of people are quick to blame individuals for our results in the last few weeks. It's a team effort at the end of the day, right? We have 23 blokes because we've got 22 on the field and the 23rd bloke who may or may not get subbed into the game, depending on how the game plays out. But they're all equally responsible for the performance and the result at the end of the day. So anybody who singles out players, first of all, it's not an individual's responsibility for why we lost. I just want to put it out there because a lot of people say that and I'm just sick of hearing it, right? And if anyone blamed Noah Cumberland or Noah Bolter for that matter for the reason why we drew on the weekend, it doesn't come down to that. I mean, for me personally, I think our forward entry has just rapidly declined throughout the season. At the start of the year, we seem to have a bit of a system going, and I particularly like to point out the preseason game against Hawthorn down in Tassie. Now, I know this is a long time ago, and people are going to be like, "Oh, why are you even bringing this up?" But for me, and obviously it's a time where you experiment things. It was probably the first time we saw Bolter go up forward too. We seem to have this game plan with our forward entry where we were maybe using shorter targets, like, shorter kicks, but we were ensuring we hit targets. And that sort of started to be the way we played in the first half of the season a little bit. But then that's just deteriorated to kicking it inside our forward 50 like we've done in the past. And it just doesn't seem to be working for us.
It's become too predictable. There was a stretch in the game where we didn't get past the halfway point of the ground. And we dominated for a couple of quarters and didn't get reward for effort. But we just couldn't get past the Freo defence. And credit to them for how they set up. But I think because we allow teams to have that extra man, and like you said, if we're just kicking it long and high, you're pretty much going to get it chopped off more often than not, aren't you?
It's just letting us down. We can't afford to be doing that, particularly when we don't have a tall forward, like a genuine tall forward target up there like we would with the Tom Lynch. Because when you add or even a Dusty Martin, you add Martin or Lynch in there in the forward line that can create, a contest and jump up for a mark when we do bomb it inside 50, and even Rewalt to some extent too. But obviously with him being by himself down there, with Nankin Soldo sort of alternating periods at Bolter as well, it just doesn't work. I feel like there've been moments where we should have been trying to get the ball inside 50 and letting the ball hit the ground so our small forwards could, utilize that chaos type football and, move the ball fast to generate score. But we just haven't seemed to be able to do that like we have in years past, sort of that, small forward, cheap sneak sort of goal that would kick a goal and spark us. We've just lacked that. We haven't been able to find that. And one of the reasons I reckon we haven't been able to find that particularly lately is because we've been chopping and changing with Maurice Frawley Jr. I just think if you look, I know, a little bit controversial with the way he came on with Ben Miller, late in the fourth quarter, but anytime Morris is on the ground, right, and he sparks us. He just adds this spark, and it was noticeable. Like we were looking down and out, and Freo were all over us, and then all of a sudden the momentum changed because not only was he trying to create stuff for us up forward, but he had that defensive pressure that you look for in a forward footballer as well. We play better football when he plays. He sets a standard without even realizing he's doing that. And okay, people will say, well, why are you saying that? Well, it's because I'm not just saying it because I love MJ. I've been saying he's been needing to play for a while. It's because he genuinely makes us a better side when he plays. So the fact that he hasn't been playing 4 quarters and he's been in and out, I just think it's hurting us.
I suppose the hard part is his pressure is elite. I think he had almost the most pressure acts, on the ground in the short amount of time he played. He was unbelievable. But I suppose the knock being his disposal count isn't as high, but then neither was Cyril's. I'm not trying to say they're the same player, but he can have strong impact with limited possessions. And the one thing we have been lacking has been that defensive pressure. Cumberland, I think, has improved on that area of the game, just over the last week or two. But Rewalt, isn't as fleet-footed as he used to be. Lynch isn't when he plays as well. Nankin Solder, when they're resting down there, aren't. So we're kind of a bit desperate for that pressure to be there to cause that front half turnover. We just don't have it. And if we're going to bomb it,
I think also at the same token, you don't have to. It's not about having the most disposal on the ground at the end of the day to have an impact, or you can have minimum impact, but it also actually have a massive impact at the same time, if you know what I mean. I think where we play better football when we got Josh Kipkis playing personally as well. And it's a big call, but he was such key for us in the first sort of 10 rounds and having him in and out in the back half of the season, just because having inconsistency, obviously you're going to have to naturally make changes with injuries and illness and what on the times we're living in. But it's just our structure really, whatever it is, just falls apart whenever we have players that are sort of in there for 6 weeks, then all of a sudden they're out for a month. And in years past, we had the depth to be able to cover for that. But those sort of fringe plays that we've had, like your Choles, your Coleman Joneses, your Alice, all those types of players that we've had in the past, they're not there anymore. And I think that's another thing that sort of we're coming to realise now we don't have those players with that experience that can just sort of step up from VFL level. And whilst the systems are probably similar, they're not quite the same as what they once were in the past. So it's just sort of, we're not quite gelling as well as what we have in the past. But I think I put it down to like we seem to have players in for a long time, and then all of a sudden something changes and it ruins. Like I think Robbie Tarrant is an example of that. Like he's really shown he's settled now because he's had some consistent footy under his belt. Players that have had some consistent footy under their belt and working together, playing together, we look good when that happens. But then as soon as a player goes out through injury or through illness and then tries to come back in again, it just like halts our overall team performance. It's just we can't seem to get it right.
Yeah, and there's obviously probably a larger blend of youth and experience than we've ever seen over the last 3 or 4 years. So that messes with a bit of team cohesion and bridging the gap between the consistency, I suppose, between a seasoned player and it's not. I'm not saying it's the kids' fault. It's not, because they need to play, and I'm excited to see them play. But it just adds a bit more reason as to why we see some of the types of football that we see. I think we've debuted almost the second most kids this year. I think we're one of the top couple of teams for games played for debutants, which is good, which is exciting. You look at Sonzi, we were calling for him ages ago to come in, and he looks like a natural at the level.
Fantastic example. And we've just got this great pedigree of players that we keep recruiting, but they need that exposure at AFL level. And I think if nothing else, if the season's shot for us, we should be giving those players a chance to have a crack at AFL level, get some more players into Sonzi, get some more games into Sonzi rather, get some other players like Sonzi playing that we've recruited, because it can only do them good at the end of the day. The more exposure in the AFL, the better, because that's what we want them to play, and we've got to start getting that next generation in that's going to replace your Cotchins, your Edwards, and even your Lamberts, that aren't going to be with us for much longer, we wouldn't have thought.
No, exactly right. We'll get to Lambert shortly, but I think the Lynch missing can't be underestimated, because to your point about the not hitting a lead-up target, he plays that role really well for us, leading up a centre-half forward, giving an option, and he's just an exceptionally solid mark of the football. So hopefully having him back in is going to straighten us up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, he's one of the best tall forwards in the competition. So when you take that out of your side, of course, it's going to have an impact. But again, going back to my point earlier, you can't, put it down to particular individuals not being in the side as to why we're not performing well. You need to be able to have a system where if you have your A recruit or your A position player out, you need your B or C position player to come in and play as good a game as they possibly can to fill that void, And in years past, we've been able to do that, but this year we just haven't been able to do it. And I think, as we've just said, it sort of comes back to the players that we're putting in there now. They just haven't had as much exposure at AFL level. They literally, instead of having 3 or 4 years under their belt, potentially in the VFL, or having played, high-grade football interstate and then come to us as a mature recruit, they're 1 or 2 years out of being drafted, and it's we see your maturity. You've worked with players, worked alongside some of our quality senior footballers and youngsters, and now it's your shot. So but it's all a big learning curve, and I think the players that have had their chances this year have certainly done us proud with their efforts.
Yeah, the young kids have. I think I've probably personally been wanting a bit more from the experienced guys, I think, to help guide them, really, and to educate them. So, these close losses do hurt. They are hard to take week after week. But when you look longer term, we are going to be in a better position, hopefully, in the next few years with these games under the belt. And, if we do happen to scrape in the finals, we know that our best is still good enough. But it's just trying to get the best out of everyone at the same time with getting some players back too. But You mentioned Kane Lambert, and obviously it came out today that he's retired effective immediately with the hip injury, which I think a lot of Richmond supporters knew was probably going to be on the cards. Even him walking the boundary the last few weeks, he's been limping, and I think this is absolutely, the best thing for his personal health. Not so much for the footy club, but 135 games, 3 premierships. We drafted him when he was 23 years old. Our winning record with him is ridiculous. Even the games this year, I think he played 7 games and we won all 7. And even before this season, it's just not a coincidence that we play better when Kane Lambert was in the side. He's an absolute workhorse, runs both ways very, very hard, and he's got line coach, senior coach, whatever you want it to be, written all over him if he so wishes to go down that path. But what do you make of Kane Lambert's career?
He's like, no Kane Lambert, no premierships for us, really. Like, just another one of those key players that have made us the Richmond that we've been, the last 6 or 7 years. We have him to thank for so much, and I think Dimmer even said that too in the speech after Kane's speech. When he briefly said thank you. You've helped us as a club as much as what we've helped you, and we sort of experimented for a little while there where we recruited some mature age players that were playing in the VFL system, and unfortunately it didn't work out as well as what it could have for some of those. But Kane was one of those who really persisted and put in the hard yards, and got reward for his effort that he put in. And I think the thing that stood out to me was he even said to me, I'm not a perfect person. I never have been, I never will be, and but I'm constantly working on myself and have the support of others around me, and have been as best a support as I can to the others around me as well. So he's going to be a massive loss, on match day and around the club in general. And I'm hoping for our sake that, maybe he could stick around as a development coach if that's something that that's of interest to him, and the club can afford to have him around, because he means a lot to the football club, and he's going to be sadly missed.
And I'm sure we all have fond memories of the prelim final against GWS, that opening goal. There'll never, ever be a noise than Kane Lambert running into that goal.
Out.
That was unbelievable.
It was, 95,000 Richmond fans.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. Like, we've never heard a louder crowd than that in our lives, as Richmond supporters, members, and I don't think we ever will ever again. He's just... he's one of a kind. He's irreplaceable, and it's a sad day to see him move on from the club. But I wish him nothing but the best, and thank him for all he's done and the happiness he's brought to so many people. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the club kind of earmarked Judson Clark to be his sort of successor. They kind of see similar traits and qualities in him. So I just hope Judson spent as much time as humanly possible with Lambert now, and if he's still at the club next year, just shadow him and learn whatever you can, because he was the ultimate professional. And a few people, I think, have rightfully said in the chat that I think outside of Richmond, Kane Lambert was severely underrated. Obviously, when you got the names like Cochin, Rewalt, Martin, they probably take a lot of the limelight and the accolades, but from a sheer structure and importance factor, he was right up there.
Oh, no, 100%, no doubt. And you're spot on with what you say there. He sort of was a player that flew under the radar a little bit, but also made his presence known in the big games and came out and absolutely dominated. And, it will never not be forgotten by the Tiger faithful, just a remarkable effort. And to play so few games as well, and to have 3 premierships to your name, it's not about how many games you play at the end of the day, but, his record speaks for himself, and we're not the team that we have been in our premiership years without him, and even outside those either side. So he'll be sadly missed, and as I said, wish him nothing but the best, and thank him again for what he's done. He's been an awesome bloke.
He has been, absolutely. And speaking of milestones, we'll get stuck into the game this week against Brisbane, but Shane Edwards becomes, I think, the first Indigenous player to play 300 games, which is an exceptional effort. And look, we can't sugarcoat it. This year hasn't been his greatest year, I think it's fair to say, but what he's given us over the journey as well has been nothing short of sensational, with his magic touch, his ability to bring players into the game. And I actually feel like his first maybe 5 or 6 years at the club, he was too far ahead of other people in terms of his thinking of where the play should be. And he was probably made to look a little bit silly with some of his handballs until they all got into the same page as him. And then he opened up so much space for people where no one else could, which allowed, all the, your Dustin Martins and all to break the lines and finished off the good work. But he's been a hell of a player for us, Shane.
Oh, look, one of my favourite players of all time, Shane Edwards, because when a game needed to be won on leadership needed to be shown on the field, you could always count on Shane to stand up. And again, another one of those players during our premiership years that really stood up. Like in the absence of Koch at times, he may not have been the actual captain. Every now and then he'd be the acting captain and whatnot. But you don't have to be a captain to be a captain. I think quietly, he's been one of our biggest leaders through the last 6, 7, 8 years, and been massive for us when we've pursued final series. And this year obviously there's been a lot of talk about where he's at as a footballer and whatnot, but we're a better football club for having Shane involved, and I think he's turned back the clock in some respects this year too with his role. Okay, he's sort of speed's probably not on his side as much as what it used to be as a footballer, but he's sort of been, springing up here and there in the forward line and just creating a few things here and there like he used to do, like vintage Shane Edwards, early Shane Edwards sort of stuff, like a bit of a goal sneak type role. And, if that's what he does and he plays out this season and he calls quits, retires and that's what he does, then I'm happy to see Shane in that way, another great servant of our football club. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that that's what's going to happen, but he might go on for another year. I don't know. But to reach 300 games is a remarkable effort, and well done. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching him as a Tiger as well.
And you feel like if we can scrape into finals, it might just breathe an extra bit of life into him, and who knows?
Yeah. But, people probably hate what I'm about to say, but I'm beginning to think that we probably shouldn't play finals. We don't really deserve to play finals now this year after our last month of football. I mean, I'm still hopeful that we can get there, but and if we get, a Dusty and Lynch and a few other players back that have been injury prone in the side, that we could, our best football is good enough. Sorry, that's a very dimmerism, but our best football well and truly is good enough. But I just worry that we've shot ourselves in the foot in the last month with some of those results being as close as what they are. If we had won a couple more, then I'd be probably a little bit more confident. But I would hate for us to, get on a run now. And I don't see us being able to win every game of the next 4 games, which we probably need to do to cement a spot on the 8. So, look, as I said, I'm hopeful that, we could get Titch into another final series and a couple of other players that may or may not hang up the boots at the end of the year. But I don't know whether or not we're good enough.
Well, it all starts this week against the Lions, who are currently sitting 3rd, and they had a win against the Gold Coast on the weekend. I suppose, if we're talking about a month ago, we were probably all looking at this as one of the games that we could probably afford to lose on the proviso that we were going to, we should have beaten North and probably Freo down here, which now obviously hasn't happened. How do you see us going into this game? We obviously get Tom Lynch back, which is a very, very good inclusion against Brisbane. But what do we have to do differently to win this?
We need to be better when we go forward. Full stop, because I don't think it's our backline letting us down. It's our ability to go inside 50. We're not clean enough, and I think we need to be trying something different as far as maybe we get a stack in there if he's available or something like that. Just we need a spark of some sorts. We need something. We need those types of players that can give us the ability to, get swing the momentum back to our favour when the going gets tough in the last quarter. Well, we've been able to do in years gone past. And also, kicking straight a little bit in front of goal would help, because the result against North Melbourne in the end, was it 22 or 23 behinds in the end?
Crazy.
Just, well, how do you explain that? Like,
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
unforgivable with no wind under a roof, mind you. I think what I'd like to see with Lynch I'll be devastated if Cumberland is the one who makes way, because I'd like to see Lynch play that higher lead-up role to give us that option out of the back line, because he's such a good target and such a good mark. Cumberland can play a little bit deeper behind him, and same with Riewoldt, just so we can get that mark on the centre wing area and then give ourselves a chance to move it quickly. But it has to be moved quickly. And I know it sounds counterproductive, but that's why Cumberland, that's why I love his most favourite trait is he loves to move the ball on quickly at all costs to give our guys a chance. And we have to try and do the same thing for him, because he's a tough matchup down there. If we can, start taking some grabs around the wing, get it in deep to Jack and Cumberland or to Lynch if he's the one down there, then I think we give ourselves a good chance.
Well, and the other thing is as well, we need to reward footballers that play good football too, because we have a habit of having players come in and they might have one off game in a sense that there might be a few bad things they do and then they're dropped for the following week. Now, I can't really say Noah Cumberland's really done anything too badly as far as since he's been given his opportunity to come in. And I think he should play out the rest of the season, and touch wood, he's able to do that, because he's showing that, real tiger fight and that defensive pressure as well up forward too, that I think we have been sort of lacking. So I think he stays in the side for sure this week against the Lions.
Is it a straight swap for Miller, do you think?
To get Lynch back in?
Yeah. I know Miller may not necessarily be injured to the point of not being able to play, but you've got to make room for Lynch to come in, and maybe that means Bolter can go back and play defence permanently.
I think it's probably going to come between Bolter and Soldo. Personally,
yeah.
I hate to say it, but I think if anything, maybe Soldo might make way for Lynch. Just on the basis that I still don't think, like, there's a few things that he does do all right, but he still hasn't quite. I don't know if the thumb's quite right or something. There's just a couple of moments where, he looked a bit fumbly around the ball, Soldo. So I think if anybody's going to make way, I reckon he might make way for Lynch.
And do you reckon Gibcus, I think he's almost a shoo-in to come back if he's good to go. He took a great mark in the VFL. It was an almost mark, one of the two, but he might come in for Miller.
Yeah, and Gibcus is another interesting one again, if you look at it, because they've been experimenting with him up forward too, sort of like what Bolter does. Like, there have been crucial moments where he's gone up forward and he's slotted a goal, like, confidently to keep us back in the hunt for games when they're, on the line. And I can't help but wonder, like, what's our thought process there? Like, we're doing the same thing with Bolter. Is it because we want the more experienced bodies down back when push comes to shove, and so that's why we're throwing him up? Or, like, I don't. Do you reckon that's sort of bad for player development, like with a Gibcus? I don't know. I'm just questioning what the thought process is behind that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard, especially when they're kids in their first year too. You've got to be careful, I suppose. But I don't know. I'd like to see him just leave him in the back line, let him do his thing. It's where he plays his best football. Bolter can be your break in case of emergency, send forward. But as long as we don't burn Gibcus out, I think that's the important part too. And that's why I think some of these rests have been very timely, although unlucky for us in terms of probably needed him to play. But yeah, he's a super talent, isn't he?
He certainly is. And I think, this could be another thing that's sort of detrimental to some of our players' development at the moment. I don't really like how we're doing this. I think they should be learning to play one role and sticking with it for a few years at the least, because I think it's left Bolter a little bit confused. Like, I know he appears to be just as capable up forward as he is down back, but the other one that comes to mind for me that I always bang on about is Liam Baker. Now, fantastic football. It doesn't really matter if he plays forward or back or in the midfield or whatever. Bakes just gives it his all no matter what. He's really excelled this year again. But for me, like, I know that in his development years played forward, he should be. He is way more effective for us half back through midfield. Like, I don't understand. Like, rather than have him playing up forward, we should be having like a Morris Jr., a Cumberland, a Stack, or whoever else is around the mark, like a Judson Clark or a Sonzi going sort of midfield, half forward, and allowing Baker to play half back through the midfield. And if he gets up to kick a goal, fantastic. I feel like he's better down back for us than he is down forward. Personally.
We're playing him there because we aren't picking a correct team in terms of the small forward setup, so we're having to do it as a makeshift. He does have an impact when he's down there, but I agree that he's more valuable in the midfield or down back.
But I don't think he has as much an impact down forward as he does down back, for me. Like, he's a proven defender, when we won our premiership. And I'm not saying it for the sake of, if we just focus our attention on Baker down back, we're going to win a flag or anything like that. It's not like that. It's just, there seems to be a lot of chopping and changing of magnets when it comes to players and key positions and whatnot. And I think that's sort of a bit detrimental to our game plan, in a sense that players get so used to playing one side of the ground, then all of a sudden they have to play on the other side of the ground. And I obviously understand on game day there are certain factors where you have to make these changes, but I also think it's a big disadvantage to us as well. Like, it doesn't always work as well as what the coaches probably hoped it could work.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's hard because, like, when he's gone forward, there's been times where he's been shifted forward and kicked a timely goal that we've needed. Like, we need 3. We need 1 on each line to solve the issue. But unfortunately, we can't get that.
But I think also on that, like, the times where he has gone up, we haven't had those supporting players necessarily in the forward line, like Orioli Jr. or a Stack or a Judson Clark or something like that could sort of do that. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough mix to get right, but I think we have to have the right support cast up forward to be able to keep players in their better positions.
For sure.
Because we'll benefit as a team as a whole. So we'll have a look at some matchups quickly, and then we'll get a tip and margin. Charlie Cameron, he's always an interesting one when we come up against him. Does Grimes get the role which he has in the past, or do we go Dan Rioli?
That could be a good matchup, Dan Rioli and Charlie Cameron.
Because Dan will head him the other way. He's been an offensive weapon, and if we can get the ball in Dan's hands, he'll run off him at 100 mile an hour.
And again, like, we talk about players that have been key to our premierships in the past, but Dan Rioli, like, can we talk about how amazing his season's been? Like, in that new role, like, talk about a footballer that has had to take on a new role and has absolutely owned it and rejuvenated his footy career. Like, if he's not top 5 in our best and fairest this year, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And you can see he's growing in confidence every week.
Yeah.
With the passes he's taking off now, like, he's being a bit more attacking and dangerous with his movements. So, and Nick, you're right, Pickett as well. Pickett's had a sensational year and would have to be, well, I know he missed a few games, but he'd be right up in the BNF as well. Even that last play against Freo, the ball was pretty much dead and buried, but he found a way to knock it forward to himself and hit Cumberland up, and he's just an unbelievable year.
I love the way Pickett's been able to take that intercept mark when our opponent's trying to get outside of our forward 50, and it's sort of on the wing or our half forward line. The way he's just jumped in and just put his body on the line to take a mark. I mean, unbelievable. I can't remember the last person I saw that could do that, but I think it's a freak ability. It's amazing.
The marking for his size is ridiculous.
Just amazing.
We'll take a look at their midfield's pretty solid. Jared Berry, McCluggage, Neal, Rayner, obviously Zorko will go through there at some point. Rich, Robinson. They back pretty deep, and it's probably a part of the ground where we struggle the most in terms of our depth and, I suppose, the bigger bodies. But we've obviously got Gray and Prestia to roll through there, Bolton will. How do we nullify all of these guys and make sure they don't have too much impact on the contest?
Well, I think one of the things that teams have been able to do against us is, particularly the midfield, is just get a run and have a shot from outside 50 and get a goal a lot of the time. Like, we just need to find a way to shut that down. And I don't know, how do we do it? Like, maybe some more tackling pressure in the centre, like, be on as soon as that ball bounces. I just think we've let our opponents get the ball and get a clearance way too easily throughout the year. Like, like, our clearance ability has just been shocking. Like, I don't know. We can't seem to win clearances very well. So,
and it always tends to happen right after we've kicked a goal. they just go bang at the middle, tap, no pressure,
Yeah.
straight on the 50, goal.
Like where in the past we could get 3 or 4 goals before they could touch the ball, our opponent.
That's right.
It's just it's been sloppy, and obviously when you've got some quality players out and you're starting to move the magnets around with your next generation of players in the midfield, it's going to be a little bit like that. But you know, I don't know. I think we need Jack Ross back in if he's around. I just think he started to have some really good form and look really good, and then all of a sudden I think he injured his knee or something along those lines. So I don't know whether or not he's fit enough to come back in, but I think he's really sort of proven his worth and stepped up and when he was playing well, and then all of a sudden he went out through injury. So if he's back, it'd be good to have him back. But yeah, no, I think the clearances are a big thing more than anything, winning them and then backing them up as well, not allowing your opponent to just get that easy clearance and kick a goal from it.
Interesting point. A few people have pointed out that the barometer for Brisbane is surely. I know he played last week. Is Reece Matheson? If he gets a game, it'll be on for young and old. I reckon he will antagonise the crap out of our players. You watch the 50 metres of free kick count go through the roof.
Yeah, but they don't play the MCG very well, Brisbane. When it's all said and done, if we can really own the MCG because it's our ground, and make them pay for it, then who cares about the barometer? Like, what kind of a name even is that? Honestly,
it's so good.
What a flog! Like, I'm sorry, but that's a flog of a name.
That is. That's terrible. All right, we'll get a tip, including margin for this one. So I think games on Sunday at the MCG. Edwards 300th. Kane Lambert, while he's not playing, it's the game, after he's announced his retirement. So make sure the Tiger Army get out there and give those boys a lot of love and support. So it's a game we have to win, and we're just got to get the job done. So what's your tip, including margin? And make sure you post yours in the chat as well, people. I'll put some up.
I'm going to tip Richmond by 23 points as a tribute to Kane.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I like that. I'll say Richmond by... I'll say 10 points. I'll go the Shane Edwards route. We need the 4 points, really, at the end of the day. We just have to get the 4 points. So
not 300?
Not 300. No. What about the Fiesta tip? Yeah, he's gone Richmond by 80.
Yeah.
Get to the game. Yeah, exactly right. So, we've had a good habit of ruining other clubs' milestones, but I think it would be nice for us to have a proper celebration for a couple of hours this week. So make sure we get out there and cheer the boys on. Oh, Adrian's gone a good one. 16 for Ben Holland. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
And another quick announcement as well that I believe we'll have Wayne Campbell on the show next week for maybe half an hour. So I'll get that confirmed in the coming days, hopefully. But hopefully we'll have Wayne on to join us to talk about the Tigers a bit more. And hopefully it'll be after a win, which would be nice.
Another one of my all-time favourites, Wayne Campbell. I was born on the 9th. I've always had an obsession with number 9. And so Wayne Campbell wearing number 9, growing up, one of my favourite players. Yeah, no, I'm sure there's a lot of childhood heroes he was. So, all right, well, that about wraps it up. Karl, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Much appreciated. It was great to have you on, having a chat with Ben as well. And, yeah, good to hear your insights again. And hopefully we can be back next week with 4 points in the bag and cling on to finals and put in a better performance. I feel like I got a lot off my chest tonight. I feel a lot better for... Like a therapy session. It is. It really is. I love being able to just come on and get all my thoughts off my chest. And, people are going to agree and disagree, but that's football, and that's what's the beauty of having the sport. It's good just to be able to provide an insight and a bit of commentary and have a bit of a chat about something we love most, and that's Richmond. Absolutely. No, spot on. It's always good to have differing opinions. That's what it's all about. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you follow us on our socials, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Share the episode around, get us up the rankings. Always appreciate the love and support. So have a good weekend, everyone, and we will see you all on Monday. Go Tigers. Count the Tigers.